8:01 a.m. in the EU, and it is 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA. Sorry about that. Having a little clicks over here, but how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Let me bring up some news. Um, my goodness, it's been a crazy week. The news is getting fast. It's just going. It's at an all-time high. There's events occurring which require people to, stay up on the news, um, stay up on what is going on politically. As we know, Trump has not taken office yet. It is January 15th. He has 5 more days left. Before that, there's loads of people saying that they are going to not show up and attend his inauguration. Of course, they'll probably have MAGA people organized with planes, buses, everywhere to go to his inauguration. His last inauguration didn't turn out to be that great, but obviously because of, Trump is not a unifier type of president. He's an attacker president. He's as the MAGA people describe him, he's a no nonsense, get right to it. If you irritate me 1 second, I obliterate you and I attack you, you know. But then he rolls it all back later. You know what I'm saying? So people don't like that kind of style from Trump, although they've come to know it as just what Trump is, just how it's going to be, and people are beginning to recognize it. Trump deals with everything that way. He leans on authoritarian rhetoric, and style. At the very least, just in terms of style, he leans on that. And so Trump starts off attacking everyone and then rolls it back, kind of like a narcissist, if you, and there's no other way to put it, because usually when you have communication, you start off trying to get as close as possible to the starting point, the start middle ground. And the starting point shouldn't be one that makes you turn around and walk away. But with Trump, if you want to deal with Trump, you have to actually sit there and listen to him rant and rave like a child, and wait for him to calm down and wait for reason to set in. You almost shouldn't say anything if you want to deal with Trump. You should just sit there and look and stare while he rants and raves, because he's going to calm down. The ranting and raving is about something else. It's just his opener to being able to have a, halfway sane conversation. And that is just what it is for Trump. But look, this DOJ report is out, and people are going to be reporting on it. And, first, let's start properly with Trump's view of the DOJ report before he's read it. I guess he's read parts of it, and this is the report one. This is not. This is not the report two. The report two is about the top secret documents that he stole and housed in his Mar-a-Lago, Florida residence, to the tune of thousands of pages of documents, right? Hundreds of boxes, basically. Who knows how many boxes, but it's more boxes. It's like more boxes than the average person would have when they're moving from place to place, right? I'm talking about the average broke person. This man had like loads and loads and loads. I mean, he may as well have just taken the whole office with him, right? Now, which is illegal. They got the documents back after Trump evaded, pretended like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no documents. I mean, the man literally went down that avenue like he didn't know he had, he didn't know there was something wrong with what he did. He first tried to make a claim that, everyone takes these things. Well, does everyone take nuclear secrets? Does everyone take, does everyone? We don't. I haven't. I've never done that. Not to that tune. Now, there might be mistakes that go on here and there, but Trump, in other words, was resistant to cooperation. But let's check out. Now it's day one, day report, not day one, it's one report, excuse me. The first report, there are two reports. This report is about the election fraud. Okay. So let's hear it. Let's see what they got to say. Look, this is what how Trump responded.
Report is out. The conclusion from special counsel Jack Smith is in. And here is Smith's take on Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election just days before the president-elect is set
now, I'm not really a fan of CNN because CNN, pretty much and more, the corporate media, which is owned by billionaires, by the way, that pretty much collude with Trump, you could say, they don't hold journalism to task. Like they do not call out falsehoods when they're put there. They do not they don't do their research. So they have lost a lot of following. Cable news, CNN, all these, ABC, all of them. Some of them are worse than others, but generally they're not really reporting. If there was something horrible in that report, you shouldn't expect them to uncover it or recite it or have a great explanation. Now, I'm not saying they don't have some information. They do. They do. But in terms of calling out Trump when he lies and tells untruths, when he says things like, for example, I'm gonna, I want to take over Greenland, these kind of things, they don't tell the American public what's wrong with that logic. They don't do the journalism and explain it, right, to people why you can't actually do that, why that's what's wrong with that, right? They don't explain it at all. They just kind of leave it out there that that's possible to do. You see what I mean? They don't break down why that doesn't make any sense at all. And a lot of people go into fear, but it turns out that you can't just do it. Even if you could do it, it would be suicide. And the media just didn't point that out. Not really. They didn't do it. And they didn't break down Donald Trump's style, where he goes out and threatens people openly and then draws it all back. They don't break down Donald Trump's lies at all. I mean, it's almost for example, his son went to Greenland. Sorry to be so long. I was late today also, folks, so excuse me for that again. But they didn't even break down the fact that there's stories out there, media, that says Trump's son paid people to stand with him in Greenland, literally paid them money. You see, and in news journalism, that's important to do because it exposes fraud. It exposes intent. He made it seem like, and the public would think that, wow, Greenlanders want Trump to take over, want Trump to take sovereignty, want to be a part of the United States. Greenlanders don't want to be a part of the United States. They're already working on home rule themselves, right? From the Danish kingdom. And the Danish kingdom, Denmark, has been having that conversation, allowing them to have home rule where they are working on becoming their own territory, their own space, right? And then here comes Trump just to, say he wants it now. Come on, the Greenlanders are working to be their own people, their own functioning country themselves, right? Why would they want to all of a sudden now not be their own country, not be their own people, you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And the public, the news media like CNN, they didn't really go into that and explain it to people. But in any case, let's take a look at this.
To retake office after winning the 2024 election. When it became clear Mr. Trump had lost the election, he resorted to a series of criminal efforts to retain power. Jack Smith goes on to say, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. The report dropped while most everyone was sleeping around 1 o'clock in the morning, and only
now you see what they're saying, right? If Trump had not been elected, he would be in jail right now. Why? Because as far as the DOJ is concerned, he committed many crimes, a litany of crimes. You see? And because the Supreme Court or people like for me myself, I don't even agree that it should be dropped. I believe that he should have been like every other citizen, unless he's above the law. You should, your hopes and aspirations for the future shouldn't matter when you're convicted of a crime. It doesn't matter for anyone else. So why is it that Trump's hopes and aspirations for himself, his desire to become the president, why is that more important than anyone else's hopes and aspirations? Why is that? And that's something the American people are going to have to work out, because it's not like that in every country, and it doesn't have to be like that in the US. The American people can simply vote that down. The representatives can simply vote that down if they don't want it. But here's probably what's going to happen. If a Republican doesn't win the White House, the next election in 2028, Republicans are probably going to shift completely to the other side and have a completely alternative opinion. They're going to probably offer and say that, no, why is this person above the law? Why should your aspirations count when you broke the law for the future? Why should your future aspirations count when you broke the law? You're to do your penalty, have your criminal investigation. Then after that, we'll deal with your future aspirations to do anything. That's how it's going to turn out, at least if you ask me. But let's keep listening.
Almost immediately, the president-elect responded, calling Jack Smith deranged, insisting the prosecution was all political. Let's start this hour with Caitlin Polantz on everything else that we learn in this 130-page report. Good morning, Caitlin.
Kate, just sum it up. What Jack Smith is saying here is, we think Donald Trump would have been found guilty at trial even after the Supreme Court allowed for immunity around the presidency, even after we rewrote the indictment. And here is all of the evidence we gathered and are thinking. That's
now the things that he did have nothing to do with presidential order. Running for office and campaigning is not something that's official president business. That's not White House business. That's not something people elect the president to do, to campaign. That's not. He has to do the campaigning is to find out if he can become president the next time. It's a personal thing. You see what I mean? If this was the case, then anyone, just think about this for a second. If this was the case, then anyone running for the presidency could do any type of crime they want and then just cover it up by saying, I'm running for the presidency. Literally. This is what has happened here. What he did illegal they're not even discussing what he did that was presidential, an official act of the president. They're not discussing that. They're discussing all the things he did that are not official acts of the presidency, which were crimes. And here you have American people literally telling themselves that it's okay because he's running for president. running for president right now in the United States absolves you from any crimes. Are you happy with that? With that result? With that conclusion? American people? Are you happy with that? Americans better ask themselves, are they happy with it? I mean, there's a lot of questions you got to ask yourself, but this is prime, you know.
That's how the report is shaped. It goes into quite a bit of detail. Kate, one of the things that Jack Smith has to look at here is why charge Donald Trump, how to charge Donald Trump, and especially how to handle charges against Donald Trump during an election year when Trump believes he should have a lot of protections and that he was being under attack from a political perspective.
Well, you can believe that you're being attacked and the reason for the attack is politics, but taking that up in court is what you should have to do. That's just a theory. That's not a fact. You see, there may be politics, but it doesn't mean politics were at play here at all. You have to prove that. You see? And if you can prove that you didn't commit these crimes and it was just politics, then go to court. But here you have a situation where everything about the justice system, everything about the Supreme Court, everything about the congressional members, the senatorial members, the representatives of the country, even the military, is saying essentially that running for the presidency absolves you of any accusation of crime. So, how long was Donald Trump running for presidency? For 4 years? For how many years? How long should a person that wants to commit a crime and get away with it, how long should they run for president? What party should they be a part of to have that work for them that way? I mean, it's not even something. The system failed. The justice system failed in the United States. And it failed because someone exuded a lot of power. Some people used a lot of power to make sure that the justice system would not work for the American people when it came to Donald Trump specifically. You could be sure that if I tried this, if anybody else tried this, pretty much any average American tried this, you would be in prison right now. And that these very same arguments would not work for you. And I'm even willing to bet that the Supreme Court is going to spend, and others, Congress, the Senate, they're going to spend a whole lot of time trying to walk this back, because what that means for justice in America, it's not Trump. It's not Trump that took a blow here. It's not Biden that took a blow here. It's the justice system itself. It's the rule of law in the United States of America that has taken a devastating blow. Because if it is to stand like this by precedent, you can't argue anything. There's nothing you can argue in the law. You know, they unraveled the law trying to protect Trump. And this, if you stand on this and say that it is correct, you are dismantling law. Once you start dismantling it, you have to continue, because now people can cite it in law. When they make laws and arguments in the court, they can cite these things. You see? So, I don't know.
Smith addresses this head on, though, in the report. He writes, there is unquestionably a public interest in ensuring that elected officials and election workers can carry out their duties without fear of threats and retaliation. Accordingly, the need to promote this federal interest weighed in favor of proceeding against Mr. Trump. They say that they wanted to proceed against Trump in this case because of not just the violence that he was behind and instigating at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021, but the amount of deceit that Trump had publicly in trying to lead his supporters to that moment where he was convincing them of election fraud when he himself knew there was none. Another thing, Kate, that's important to point out, Jack Smith accompanied this report with a letter defending his team, putting it in the course of history and saying that you think that this was a political prosecution? It was not. My team had integrity. He writes, the claim from Mr. Trump that my decision as a prosecutor were influenced or directed by the Biden administration or other political actors is, in a word, laughable. Kate?
Yep.
There you have it.
Not mincing any words on that one. That's
Now, so it's out there. The report is out there. I'm about to download the report and read it for myself. But until then, right, I want to go over first. Let me check the audio here because I want to make sure y'all can hear all of that just happened here. 2 seconds. Give me a second, y'all. Two seconds. Let me see here. Is this up or what? Okay. Oh, I get it. Hold on. I'm in the wrong account. Yeah, I'm just trying to check this real quick on my TV just to make sure that the audio is working. 2 seconds. I'm in the wrong daggone account. That's what happened. Okay, so now I can check it. Boom. Home. All right. Okay. So here we go. Let's come back now.
for sure. Caitlin, thank you so much. Sarah.
All right. Let's bring in Elie Honig, the CNN senior legal analyst and former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Just in looking at this and in hearing what you heard Caitlin say, is what we are seeing a typical report by a special counsel?
So in most respects, yes, Sarah, when you look at the substantive body of this report, it's what we expect to see from special counsel and from Jack Smith. It is a systematic, methodical laying out of the evidence and explaining how that evidence meets the laws that Jack Smith chose to indict Donald Trump on. The part that's unusual, though, is that 4-page introductory letter that Caitlin just mentioned. It is an intense, almost emotional defense of Jack Smith's team. Now, it's normal to see special counsel write something in a couple sentences saying, my team was very hardworking and had high integrity and was not political. But he goes on a rant. He quotes John Adams. He quotes former attorneys general. He says the criticism of him was laughable. And I suppose one could look at that as an important and necessary example of Jack Smith standing up for his team. On the other hand, though, it's hard to read that and then conclude that everything that follows is completely separate from emotion and completely workmanlike and has nothing to do with his personal feelings. So
you see what he just said? This is CNN billionaires talking right now, because this is propaganda, what you're hearing right now, pro-Trump propaganda. And I'm going to explain to you why. Listen to his words.
On the other hand, though, it's hard to read that and then conclude criticism of him was laughable. And I suppose it was not political, but he goes defense of Jack Smith's team. Now, it's normal to see special counsel write something in a couple sentences saying my team was very hardworking and had high integrity and was not political. But he goes on a rant. He quotes John Adams. He quotes former attorneys general. He says the criticism of him was laughable. And I suppose one could look at that as an important and necessary example of Jack Smith standing up for his team. On the other hand, though, it's hard to read that and then conclude that everything that follows is completely separate from emotion and completely work.
Well, here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing you got to realize. It's hard to think that Trump's response are not emotional. But yet, that's not where they're going with this. This is not where the place where you get to find out, where you get to separate emotion from fact and conclude something is in the very court that Trump did not have to go to. This is the problem. And if he doesn't make that point at the end of this little rant that he goes on, I'm talking about the news reporter here, the journalist, whatever his kooky ass, poor journalistic self is doing for money, for profit himself, if he doesn't state that, then you know it's propaganda, because there's one place where you separate personal from fact, truth from lie, and that is in the court litigated. And Trump was absolved of litigation.
Like, and has nothing of Jack Smith standing up for his team. On the other hand, though, it's hard to read that and then conclude that everything that follows is completely separate from emotion and completely workmanlike and has nothing to do with his personal feelings. So as with many things, Sarah, it's in the eye of the beholder.
You see that? It's in the eye of the beholder. It should have been in the eyes of the jury. That's what any type of dispute would be litigated when it comes to criminal prosecution, when it comes to being charged. And what Trump did was he bought and paid through several billionaires helping him the entire way. He bought the result. And American people should understand that is the most heinous abuse. That's the most heinous abuse of classism. When you buy yourself step by step, every step of the way, out of responsibility for anything. You see? Now, the Justice Department, they made a critical mistake here. And it is the Justice Department. The way things used to function was that the president does not tell the Justice Department what to do. Right? That's not the role of the president. But y'all, this has now changed because of Trump. And it's changed because of news reporters like this. And it's changed because of corporate media like this, where they're not actually doing the journalism. They're not actually doing what they're supposed. They have become a pure propaganda arm against the American people, because they're supposed to inform American people just about the facts, not about their opinion. Right? Now, the thing about it is that there's only one place to litigate this. Now, before, the normal thing to do was you appoint someone, the head of the DOJ, and they run an investigation, but you're not telling them to run an investigation. They're just the head of the DOJ. They got millions of investigations. You're just saying you're the head of the DOJ. You don't tell them who to prosecute because you already know you have a law. The head of the DOJ is supposed to follow the law, period, regardless of fear or favor. That did not happen with Trump. What happened was that they have a what do you call it? They have a view where you can't prosecute a sitting president. When Trump came out of office and he wasn't the sitting president anymore, they waited too long to charge him. They waited. That was a critical mistake. Now you have to ask Garland why he did that, right? Because that little bit of time, those months where Trump was not the president, they did everything to make sure that it was not political. So, right? They wanted every little piece of evidence, and Trump wasn't cooperating. He wasn't. Remember when he left the office and Trump had those records in his home and he was delaying. And then you find out, wait a second, you got thousands of documents in your home, boxes. You had instructed people to hide and move and remove, change rooms, of these documents. You had people in Mar-a-Lago where these documents were. You had the documents in the toilet at one point. He discussed what was in the documents. It's on videotape for the public to see. Yes, CNN themselves reported on it. You know, folks, you're entering into an unprecedented time where these corporate medias now work for the billionaire class only. That's it. And they're going to lean towards the billionaire class, not fact. So if pollution is what's causing your illness, they're not going to lean that way. If the pollution's in the air, if it's in the water, they're not going to lean that way. You see what I mean? If there's corruption that's going on, corporate corruption going on, they're not going to lean that way. If you get hurt at work, they're not going to lean that way. If you want if you want health insurance, they're not going to lean that way. This is what you're entering into. When it comes time to vote, your voting rights, they're not going to lean that way. And I got to tell you, any person that would get up here and lie and tell you this, I have zero respect for this man to the right. I have zero respect. And this woman to the left, she should just step down and stop working for CNN. I don't know what contract they got on her, what kind of punitive damages they will issue. She generally is not a biased reporter. She's not reporting bias here. But the man to the right, what he just said is complete, utter bias. It has nothing to do with the Constitution of the United States, with the law, or reason, fact or reason. Zero. It is total 100% billionaire corrupt business what is coming out of this man's mouth. It's not even useful to a toddler. Anyone can see that that was pure propagandic lies. What that man just said, he did not tell the journalistic truth. Okay, and if you think that's journalism, man, what are you paying these people for? You may as well pay me $1 million to do nothing. Be afraid, folks. Be afraid. And I'm going to tell people, I got my passport, my new passport renewed, which lasts 10 years. It was just renewed last year, the top of this year, because I knew Trump was going to be in office on the 20th of January. And I was like, man, I ain't going through. I'm going to make sure I get this. I had even had more than, it wasn't even expired. But I wanted to make sure that I would not have to apply for a passport while Donald Trump is president. Because you don't know if any of the embassies are going to function for American citizens anymore. You don't know if any department of the government is going to function normally anymore, y'all. You don't know that. And you cannot trust corporate media to tell you one single truth about it. Man, just hearing what he said disgusted me. I didn't even hear this dumb shit come out of his mouth. This is disgusting. Like literally, this is just utter disgust. Before I go over to the Midas touch, I just want to let's see what Philadelphia is saying. I mean, I don't expect no better, but I just want to check around here. Maybe some smaller branch of news media might decide to, do some journalism.
This morning, the Department of Justice releases Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report on his election interference case against President-elect Donald Trump. The report lays out the probe that resulted in Trump being charged in 2023 with 4 felony counts of undertaking a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. The special counsel making it clear he believes prosecutors had enough evidence to convict Trump and maintained his investigation was free of interference or influence from political actors, the Justice Department, or anyone else. That prosecutors had evidence to prove that the 2020 election was not stolen despite Trump's repeated allegations to the contrary. And Smith also detailed the pressure campaign on the former vice president.
Now keep in mind, Trump is under there's no one telling Trump to prove what he is saying is true. What did they just say here?
Writing, quote, 2020 election was not stolen despite Trump's repeated allegations to.
Right. Now, when is Trump going to prove it was stolen in a court of law? When is he going to prove it? In a court of law with jurors. See, that's the problem right there. Trump can say anything he wants. And then when the justice system says we have evidence and we want to find out, we want to bring it before a jury, he doesn't have to go in front of a jury. His opportunity to prove it would be in front of a jury of his peers, just like us, right? Just like every other citizen. And Trump opted to not do that. And people made arguments for him to not do it the entire time,
To the contrary. And Smith also detailed the pressure campaign on the former vice president, writing, quote, in repeated conversations, Mr. Trump pressured Mr. Pence to use his ministerial position as president of the Senate to change the election outcome, often by citing false claims of election fraud. In a letter obtained by ABC News that Smith sent Attorney General Merrick Garland last week, along with his final report, Smith defended his conduct as fully lawful, free of partisan influence, and vital to the aspirations of the justice system, saying, quote, the intense public scrutiny of our office, threats to their safety, and relentless unfounded attacks on their character and integrity did not deter from fulfilling their oaths and professional obligations. Smith also personally denounced Trump for levying, quote, laughable and baseless attacks on the federal prosecutors who brought the 2 criminal cases against him.
President-elect Donald Trump responded to the report on social media, calling Jack Smith a, quote, lame-brain prosecutor and claiming the voters have spoken. Nicole D'Antonio, ABC News, Washington.
Just checking the audio real quick. Yeah, so you can see the news media is not reporting on the report, not yet. They're not going to break down the report for you all. Now, what's very important, I would think, for American people is that they break down and they discuss every single aspect of this report. And not only that, but you need to understand something. Report number 2 is being litigated because Trump does not want, and Republicans and billionaires, the billionaire class does not want the truth revealed about how Trump became president, what Trump did after that he became president. They don't want people to know the harm that a billionaire, a person with that much money, can do when they are inside of the government. So they don't want any of this stuff coming out about Trump, especially in report number 2, because what's going on in regarding number 2 is the allegation of espionage, revealing secrets to the United States enemies, all types of things that really, if the United States was in a war with anyone, just releasing secret information could be the key to winning a war against the United States of America. And I mean inside of the United, it puts American people in danger. Yes. And that is the opposite of what a person working in the government should be doing, let alone the president. The president should not be revealing top secret defense information to persons that would harm the United States or their citizens. They're supposed to be protecting the citizens. Now, that's what report number 2 is about. Who has Trump betrayed? What secrets has he let out to others? And he has let secrets out. It's already been reported. He has talked to people that did not. He has shared information in reports to people that did not have top secret clearance by the United States government. And he did that in his home, the same place where he invites thousands of people to go every day. So it seems like what's happening to me is not just a coup, like to take over the presidency, to take over the government. No, it seems like something beyond that. Like a lot of people think that when you don't follow the law, that, oh well, he's just going to be the president and that's what this is about. No, you don't know where this could turn, where the rhetoric could change. You don't know, because if there's no law, it can go anywhere it wants to go. It could go anywhere it wants to go. And that's the exact opposite of what the law is for. The law is there to protect people's rights. This problem right here has circumvented the average person's rights. All right, let me go back. Let me go over to the Midas Touch real quick and see what they're talking about here. For those that don't know, the Midas Touch, Ben Meiselas teaches law, and on top of that, they have a law firm, which is quite well known. So I like to tap in from time to time and see what they're reporting.
Volume 1, which relates to the DC election case against Donald Trump, relating his attempt to overthrow the free and fair election. Donald Trump made a last-ditch effort on Monday night to try to block the release of the DOJ report. Judge Eileen Cannon denied it. It's 174 pages. I went through each of the pages. I want to give you a summary of what is in this DOJ report. We're going to go through it together meticulously, diligently. We're going to look at the report together. I'm not just going to give you my impressions. Let's look at it. So the report that was just released, again, 174 pages. It begins with a cover letter by Special Counsel Jack Smith to Merrick Garland. It talks about how there's Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the report. Volume 1 is the DC case. Volume 2 involves the case involving Donald Trump's theft of the Mar-a-Lago documents from Washington, these highly classified documents that he kept at Mar-a-Lago. Volume 2 is not being released because Walty Nauta, Carlos de Oliveira, Donald Trump's co-defendants, are still co-defendants in that action. Special Counsel Jack Smith makes it clear in his report that the decision here ultimately to prosecute was his alone. He talks about how he exercised independent judgment, and while he relied on the counsel of others in the special counsel's office, he says he stands by the decision to bring both the Washington, D.C. case and the Mar-a-Lago document case. And while he was writing this cover letter, it was clear whether all of this information would be released. So Special Counsel Jack Smith says, look, I'm turning this over. We'll let the court system ultimately decide what gets released, but I think these documents should be released. Volume 1 should be released as relates to the DC case. Volume 2 should not be released while the De Oliveira and Walty Nauta case.
Now, keep in mind, Trump is old as fuck, right? Trump is old as fuck. So Trump is going to have 4 more years if he doesn't die as the president. What do you think is, if this took so long, just these egregious accusations and charges took so long, they haven't even been processed yet. The man has not even sat in front of a jury and made a defense yet about these egregious charges. And it took so long to even get this far, and now it's going to be delayed in another 4 years, right? And the expectation is that it's delayed another 4 years, and then when he gets out of office, he will be charged, and then he will stand up. Man, he's going to be old, raggedy. They're going to make all kinds of arguments of why he's too old, blah, blah, blah. Then they're going to say he didn't do it, even though the evidence is there that he did it. It's public information. Everything that Trump has even basically admitted it, admitted to things openly. He does it he doesn't, you don't get a chance to question him. What do you mean by that? But he admits things. But for a second, before we hear that, let me just switch over. I know I'm flipping up. Trump has gone back on every promise that he has made to the people that voted to him. Now, maybe those people don't care about that. It seems like they don't. Some of them do, but it seems like ultimately most of them don't give a damn about that. But let's just go over the few. Here, J.D. Vance's statement just the
Is the
other
line
day.
drawn on who will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that.
Is the line
There ain't no gray area there. There's no gray area at all. He just said, would it be if you
drawn on who
Yeah.
will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang,
if you protested peacefully, right? And you had Merrick Garland's prosecutorial office treat you like a gang, but you were being peaceful,
member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but
if you committed violence there, you shouldn't be pardoned. Okay, so what is violence? Is violence saying we're it's even ridiculous. You have to do is breaking a window violent? Is having an armed mob roll over the police violent? You see, this is the thing that they're asking people to go for. I mean, and here's the trouble. How do you use this as precedent in a legal case? So if this is how the Justice Department is going to operate in the future, they are unraveling justice in itself. Because part of the justice system is precedent. They operate on precedent. They say, what have they done in past cases like this? Right? That's what they always do when it comes to a question over what is what, right? And this is what you have to define. You have to define these things the entire court process before you go into trial, during the trial, and maybe even after the trial if you want to have a hearing where, what do they call this in the US? They say when you've been convicted of a crime and then you want to have it recalled, I forget the term that they use. I'm sorry, because I'm speaking more than one language now, so I get confused. But yeah, I got to go back on that. But you know what I mean. Now, damn, what is the type of hearing that you have once you've been convicted and you want to have it overturned? But in any case, you have to refer to these things to precedent. And listen to what this man says.
we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned.
They have everybody on tape. The Capitol building itself has video cameras everywhere on the outside and the inside. They know what people were saying. They know how people were reacting to what was being said. When you say something like hang Mike Pence, and they have you on camera going, yeah, hang Mike Pence. Should you be pardoned? When they have you on camera violently attacking the police, right? Disobeying what the police said, who are defending the Capitol, who are defending the representatives. So is that okay? Or is that not okay? Now, again, if that is okay, you're going to have a problem with the legal system the next year. because then it's going to happen again and again and again, because now precedent states that it was okay, that these acts are okay. People died because they didn't follow police instruction. Police died because people didn't follow police instruction. How did they die? They were physically injured by the people that didn't follow police instruction. And this man is trying to make it seem like, well, there was some people prosecuted that weren't violent. It's a complete and utter lie. The Justice Department didn't prosecute every person that was present. They prosecuted it based on evidence, based on video and audio recordings. If they didn't have video and audio recording of you doing something against the law, then there it is. You weren't prosecuted.
And there's a little bit of a
Is the line drawn on who will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang.
Now, the allegation, what they said before is that they would all be pardoned. That's what Trump said when he was running for office this time around. This changed when? After he became the president-elect. Even that is a change. He started off saying you would all be released. Now he's saying if you committed violence, but they couldn't convict you without proof that you committed a violent act. You see what I mean? They didn't charge people for protesting. They didn't charge people for being in the Capitol building. They charged people that committed violent acts and harmed others, destroyed property, things like this. Now, let's check out the next thing that they went back on. Ukraine. Here we go.
We'll set the conditions for the president, and then he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin. And also,
now this man was part of the envoy that Trump just sent over to speak with Zelensky, right? Again, this has just happened. This is breaking news. You heard Trump. Trump said before that he would resolve this as soon as he became the president-elect, right? Before he even took office, right? Now he is rolling that completely back. He is going the opposite direction. Look,
Prime Minister President.
This man was the head of the envoy that talked with Zelensky. He just came back and is talking about what has been discussed and talking about the decisions that have been made, that have now been made by Trump. And he's reporting it to the public.
Zelensky as well. And I think they're going to come to a solvable solution in the near term. And when I say by the near term, I would like to set a goal on a personal level and professional level. I would say let's set it at 100 days and move our way back and figure a way we can do this in the near term to make sure that the solution is solid, it's sustainable, and that this war ends and so that we stop the carnage. And I think that's going to be very, very important to do. It's going to be important for our national security. It's a part of our vital national interest, and it's also good for Europe as well, and the globe as well as too. We'll set the conditions for the president, and then he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin and also President Zelensky as well. And I think they're going to come to a solvable solution in the near term. And when I say by the near term, I would like to set a goal on a personal level and professional level. I would say let's set it at 100 days and move our way back. And
100 days is summertime. Summertime is what they're talking. So as you see, the United States, this is another way of saying the United States will continue to support Ukraine until the summertime, where they first expect an agreement could possibly be made. And of course, Putin is outraged by this. He's outraged by this because the Russian military can't take the beating they're getting. Russian soldiers, I don't even know what the death rate is. Let me look this up. What is the death rate? The death rate of Ukrainian versus Russian soldiers. I mean, it's a bloodbath for Russian soldiers, and they're the ones invading. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, oh my God, it is ridiculous. Let me see here. What is the death rate purported? Okay, here it is. As of October 2024, the Pentagon estimates that Russian forces have sustained 600,000 casualties, including both killed and wounded personnel. Okay. Okay, actually, they say here that the Ukrainians have lost 696,000. That's more, right? But here's the thing. The size of the armies are totally disproportionate. They're totally disproportionate. Okay. Now independent media says February that the Russians have lost only what is this? Hold on. Investigation published in February 20 confirmed that in 2023 they lost 75,000. Let me see here. Obviously, the reporting on this is a little skewed. Okay. Official Ukrainian, here it is. As of January 2025, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has resulted in significant military casualties on both sides. Precise figures are challenging to confirm due to the ongoing hostilities and varying report standards, but credible estimates provide insight. Ukrainian military casualties. Official Ukraine estimates report that approximately 43,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, with an additional 370,000 wounded since the beginning of the full scale. Now we're talking about wounded and dead. Russian military casualties. As of 2024, the Pentagon estimates that Russian forces has sustained 600 casualties. That's killed and wounded. Ukrainian armed forces estimates that it's approximately 700,000 wounded and killed. Okay, so, but here's the thing. Now, size of army, Russia, size of army in battle in Ukraine, Russian versus Ukrainian. I mean, see, this is where the numbers are disproportionate. And so when you look at this, total active personnel, Vladimir Putin ordered an increase of Russian military personnel by 180,000, bringing the total approximate to 1.5 million active duty troops. Troops deployed in Ukraine. Estimates suggest that Russia has deployed significant portions of its military in Ukraine. Okay. Ukrainian personnel prior to the conflict, active military was 250,000 in response to the invasion. Troops engaged in defense. Casualties, Russian casualties, right, is up there with 500,000, 600. Okay. Let me see here. Ukrainian casualties and wounded 3. Okay, so the issue here is that there's way more soldiers fighting on the Russian side, right? So the way that they're fighting, the Ukrainians are at a disadvantage in terms of personnel. That's always been the case. So when you look at the death rate, it's pretty close. Or the casualty rate is pretty close, even though the military size and the active personnel is not close at all, right? So let's see here. Let's go back to this statement.
The way we can do this in the near term to make sure that the solution is solid, it's sustainable, and that this war ends and so that we stop the carnage. I think.
So you could expect. Let's see here. 90 days, obviously 100 days, that's 3.5 months, right? 90 days is 3 months. 100 days is 3.5, right? Right. Roughly, right? So let's say here, we're dealing with the middle of February, the middle of January to February to March to April, right? To May. We're talking about the middle of May, basically, right? And May is basically when summer breaks. Now, what do you think can happen what do you think is going to happen in that time? It's going to be war in that time. And of course, Trump had promised Putin and the world something completely different. So Putin has been planning for that difference. He had been waiting for that difference, even though publicly he's been saying, hey, I'm not ready to talk to Trump, right? That's what Putin said. That was their reaction before. Now that Trump, his envoy has come back with this information, check this out. Russian response to USA envoy. Check this out. Did I even type this up right properly? Hold on, let me go back. If I just say Russian,
We'll set the conditions for the president, and he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin and also Prime Minister.
Hold on. To Trump. Here we go. Okay, this is a month ago. A month ago, this is what it was. They're acting like they don't want to.
This $39 headlamp is.
They're acting like, hey, we don't really care when it ends. We good with what we're doing. Check this out. Now they changed the whole tune.
Working to increase the delivery of weapons to Ukraine in its final days in office, prompting criticism from President-elect Donald Trump. Russia's state media praising the incoming president as allies ponder what the relationship between the Kremlin and the White House will look like going.
You see? So they were praising Trump a month ago.
Forward.
As Ukraine's air defense frantically fights off yet another massive Russian missile and drone attack, just hours after President-elect Trump criticized the Biden administration for allowing Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied ATACMS missiles to strike deep inside Russia, Kremlin-controlled TV praising the incoming president. More absolutely sensational news, the host says. Donald Trump condemned the use of ATACMS for attacks on the territory of Russia. He asked quite a natural question. Why are we doing it, and what are we trying to gain from it? He then answered, we're just fueling this war and making it worse. State TV also airing an extended segment on Trump becoming...
Now, keep in mind, this is Russian state media we're listening to.
Times Person of the Year, repeatedly depicting an Instagram post from the president-elect's son, Donald Jr., showing Trump kicking Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, off the cover of Time. The Kremlin itself...
And this is because of Donald Trump's rhetoric a month ago, before he became the president-elect. Now, check this out. Check this out.
Ton of world leaders have called you as well. We understand still no call with Putin. Is that a day one or week one call that you want to have?
He wants to meet, and we're setting it up. President Xi, we've had a lot of communication, and we have a lot of meetings set up with a lot of people. Some have come, but I'd rather wait till after the 20th.
And when you say meet with Putin or meet with Xi, do you guys want to have some kind of a summit, or are they going to come here?
To be determined, but President Putin wants to meet. He's said that even publicly. And we have that war over. That's a bloody mess. Soldiers are being killed by the millions. We looked at some very graphic pictures yesterday. The soldiers that are being killed, it's a flat field. The only thing that stops a bullet is a body. These are it's a very, very flat land. And the soldiers are fighting, and they are dying by the hundreds of thousands.
Look, why does Trump care how many Russian soldiers or Ukrainian soldiers die? Why does he care? And then when you juxtapose it to his response about the U.S. forest fires, does he sound like he cares? Does he sound like he cares about suffering? But in any case, listen to his statement.
And not to mention the towns and the cities which were, largely demolished. And there are a lot of people in the big surprise, and it's going to be a very unpleasant surprise, is how many people were killed in that war. It's much higher than the press is reporting. When a building comes down, these are big buildings, they're 2 and 3 blocks long, different kind of construction. They're long and
look, he knows all. Look at how much. Look at all the excuse splaining, the splaining he's doing about something that is not really his business. I mean, think about it. It says, he's contradicting himself. On one hand, we shouldn't even be there, but now he's explaining why there's so much loss of life. You see, but the Ukrainians already said that the Russians will commit genocide against them. That is what they said from the beginning, essentially, right? Something to the effect of that. So they view the war as fighting for their lives. And yet this guy's coming with a different perspective. Like he didn't even hear that. And he's like, why are they killing each other? Dude, what are you talking about? You missed the news? You missed what they've been saying? And look, it's a lot of changes going on in the rhetoric. Listen to what he's saying. Now listen to his envoy. His envoy said the opposite. Check this out. Just one day.
We'll set the conditions for the president, and then he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin, and also
we will set the conditions for the president. That means there's no guarantee of any type of talk. Period. The conditions have to be set first. That is the message that his special envoy, Trump, said to Fox Media upon his return from meeting with Zelensky. Now, just let's hear it again.
President Zelensky as well. And I think they're going to come to a solvable solution in the near term. And when I say by the near term, I would like to set a goal on a personal level and professional level. I would say let's set it at 100 days.
Let's set it at 100 days on a personal and professional level. But first, the conditions have to be set. That is an exact rollback from what Trump said in his day one. That's a straight up rollback. Now, Trump, in his initial, when he first became president, he promised that he was going to build a wall. Trump ain't talking about a wall anymore, right? Trump failed at building a wall, but that's what he ran on in his first election when he became president. He didn't do that. Trump has a pattern of not doing anything that he goes out and he tells his supporters. And that is because Trump tells them things that are not possible, and they believe him. They chose this group of people because you can basically pull the wool over their eyes. These are rural people. These are people that do not have, for the most part, a high level of education, right? I hate to say it that way, but they're not known for that. These are people that are very ideological versus fact driven, right? So when you speak to them a certain way, you kind of bait them to believe you. And the billionaire class knows that about that group of people, the MAGA supporters. He knows that. They either get excited about racist comments or bigoted comments. When it comes to substance about what the nation needs, meaning everybody, including them, they don't understand that conversation. Infrastructure. They're lost on the infrastructure conversation. They don't even know how a rollout takes place, right? They don't even know why it's necessary. You see, for them, fires are based on God, not based on geological effects of climate change. For them, flooding is based on God, not geological changes for climate change. And therefore, the $2 trillion bill that Biden got passed and signed, and Congress signed because they control the purse, that's coming to deal with infrastructure flooding, that's coming to deal with fires, of course, it takes years to roll out because you have to have people on the ground. You have to hire people to do the work. It's a rollout. It takes time. It's an investment in the country. It's not a piece of candy that you get immediately to put in your mouth and enjoy the taste. Trump voters don't understand something that complex, although it affects their lives greatly. So they don't support those kind of things in a vote. They support things like build a wall because they understand that, although they don't understand a wall can't be built. The wall, even if you build the wall, it won't have the desired effect. So when Biden and the Congress and the Senate were ready, when Republicans and Democrats, when they led the Congress, when they were ready to do something about comprehensive immigration reform, his voters didn't understand that, because in their mind, building a wall solves that problem. When people come through the legal, people actually drive, they don't climb the wall. More people are just driving through the border. Why? Because there's no manpower. People are flying over the border, digging holes under the border. Why? Because there's no manpower. Not only that, we're letting people in because we need them in the first place. You know, so the problem is that when people come in, they might have a child and they want to stay because they're legal workers. You see what I mean? They don't get all the details of what is really happening, his voters. So they tend to go for tropes. And that's the sad reality of the United States of America. In my opinion, it's because we have not invested in education in our own people, in our own citizens. Every child, whether you want to have a job at McDonald's or not, should have the benefit of higher learning. Everyone, no matter if you join the military or not, you should have the benefit of higher learning. No matter if you, are a, no matter what you want to do, even if you work at a cleaning job, you should have the benefit of higher learning. Higher learning means access to a trade education, to a technical education, or access to university. You should have it. You should have the benefit of that, right? Of getting an education on that level. You see, and the United States has not made that available to its citizens. They have not voted for that. Its representatives have not fought. The Dems have fought for it somewhat. But what I'm saying is the United States, Republican, and it doesn't matter what party you're talking about, other nations have this in the Western world. The United States doesn't. So in the United States, you have a deficit of education among the voters, which leads them to go for political tropes versus understanding facts and details. It's that simple. Now, let me flip over. Let's go back to this. Reporting here. Here's another criticism of reporting. This man is a military person. Let's hear it.
Terrorism. Why don't we jump right into it? Tell me what you're seeing between the insurrectionist movement that we are marking this week and this new surge of terrorist activity.
Yeah. So what I think is sad is that journalists, well-meaning journalists, have looked at what happened in Vegas and they're starting to go, oh, this is a veteran with PTSD. It wasn't terrorism. Just because the guy wrote in his crazy manifesto that this is not terrorism. Like, I don't know when else that has ever worked. Now, what I think it's important for people to actually read this. I, as an extremism researcher, I often get extremely frustrated when people share manifestos by crazed individuals who go out and murder others. But the reason that I want to encourage people to seek this one out, and to be clear, I'm talking about the one distributed by police, not by conspiracy theorists on YouTube, is because this guy is talking about a bunch of QAnon themes. He's talking about truckers and veterans going to
They're talking about, he's discussing the guy in that blew up the Trump thing in what was it, Nevada, right? That blew up the Tesla car in front, which everyone sees. Obviously, that's what a coincidence. You get a Tesla car and blow it up in front of Trump Tower. Now, in front of not Trump Tower, Trump Hotel. Now, people can talk about what the purpose of that was. Me myself, I thought like, damn, if you like Trump, what a weird way to show it, right? If you like Elon Musk, what a weird way to show it. I actually thought maybe it was a Trump supporter that stopped liking Trump.
DC and surrounding federal buildings and shutting down highways and engaging in a purge. He's talking about a hard reset. A hard reset is a term used by accelerationists like white supremacists who are trying to collapse our government and society so that they can engage in a race war. So the connection between January 6th and what happened in Vegas is this MAGA extremism. This guy is a MAGA extremist. His call to action at the end was for everyone to rally around Trump, Elon Musk, and RFK Jr., the three of the most important and influential spreaders of political disinformation in the United States.
The second part of that,
terrorism.
Why don't we jump right into it? Tell me what you're seeing between the insurrectionist movement that we are marking this week and this new surge of terrorist activity.
Yeah. So what I think is sad is that journalists, well-meaning journalists, have looked at what happened in Vegas and they're starting to go, oh, this is a veteran with PTSD. It wasn't terrorism. Just because the guy wrote in his crazy manifesto that this is not terrorism. Like, I don't know when else that has ever worked. Now, what I think it's important for people to actually read this. I, as an extremism researcher, I often get extremely frustrated when people share manifestos by crazed individuals who go out and murder others. But the reason that I want to encourage people to seek this one out, and to be clear, I'm talking about the one distributed by police, not by conspiracy theorists on YouTube, is because this guy is talking about a bunch of QAnon themes. He's talking about truckers and veterans going to DC and surrounding federal buildings and shutting down highways and engaging in a purge.
So now the guy in Nevada, he's associated with these groups, right? And these groups have manifestos. It's not just one, but the groups that he's associated with, right? The group he's associated with, in their manifesto, they're talking about besieging DC, but not just DC. They want to take control so that they can have an ethnic purge, a race war. And this is how he's describing the activities of Trump supporters.
He's talking about a hard reset. Hard reset is a term used by accelerationists like white supremacists who are trying to collapse our government and society so that they can engage in a race war. So the connection between January 6th and what happened.
Now, obviously, if you have any brains, the Democratic Party has a big tent. The Democratic Party is not trying to have a race war. The Democratic Party is trying to have basic democratic rights based on the Constitution, right? Now, it seems logical that to fight racism, you want to gather together people of all backgrounds that are against racism, right? And many people of whatever you want to call it, white people in America are against racism. People already lived through that period in history of the country. People already know what it's like. The people that take any care about the history of their country. Black people know what that's like. Native Americans know what that's like. And the whole time there, you had other issues. Women know what that's like because they couldn't vote either. So you have an aspect of misogyny there. You also have the aspect of religious groups, even, fighting each other, having some religious ideologies where you have the separation of church and state because of that reality. So that religious people don't go around fighting and thinking that one has a right over the other based on religion. So we have all those things in our history, and those are things we've confronted in the Constitution. Those are things we've confronted in constitutional amendments, which are also an extension of the Constitution, right? You don't have one without the other, because that's what, according to the Constitution, you make amendments when you need to. That's the whole point. So the amendments are part of it. Now, the news media, he's complaining about the news media not doing the reporting on this explosion, because had they done their journalism and reported the news, they would be reporting what he's just saying right here.
In Vegas is this MAGA extremism. This guy is a MAGA extremist. His call to action at the end was for everyone to rally around Trump, Elon Musk, and RFK Jr., the three of the most important and influential spreaders of political disinformation in the United States.
The second part of that,
there you have it. So, this is something that you're not going to see for some strange reason in corporate media right now. You will not see the reporting. Now, here's the thing. Here's another aspect to this. If you go here and you see now that Trump has rolled back what he said about, can you see this? Let me check. Right. If you go to this one and you see that Trump, the one where his envoy is reporting on his discussion and what he discussed with the president and all of these things, right? What he discussed with Zelensky, blah, 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 right? The Trump envoy head. You obviously see that if the United States, according to this man, who is a Trump head of Trump's envoy to the Ukraine, they say they're going to continue to support Ukraine until the summer, where, there will be grounds for a discussion then at that point. So that's a change in what Trump said before when he was running for office. You're going to have this war, which is a war that has several counterparts to it, NATO allies. So they will continue to talk with NATO because they are in this conflict. What NATO does also affects what the United States does, right? He went over there. If you're going to have any discussion about what the military is doing, the United States is still a member of NATO right now. And this is the plan. This is what's coming out of this beat. You see? So how are you then going to pivot over to Greenland, which is a territory of a NATO country? Get it? How are you going to do that? Right?
Of course, I want to say some words to the discussion taking place about Greenland right now. I want to make it very clear that seen with the eyes of the Danish government, Greenland is for the Greenlandic people. It is a very proud people, a language and culture. It is a people that is their own. And as the chairman of the government of Greenland, Mute Egede, has stated before, Greenland is not for sale. The United States is our absolute closest ally, and we want to work closely with them in all defense and security questions. It is also regarding the North Atlantic, where tensions are rising.
You see? Let me play that back. I think I have one without the music here.
Of course, I want to say some words to the discussion taking place about Greenland right now. I want to make it very clear that seen with the eyes of the Danish government, Greenland is for the Greenlandic people. It is a very proud people.
Now, so the Danish prime minister has always been, Denmark has been working with the United States on security since the founding of NATO. Is one of the first NATO members, right? And NATO has contributed to the safety and the prosperity of the United States and its citizens. Now, a logical and rational person would understand that that means they're a friend of the United States and the United States people. I'm an American that lives in Denmark, so I understand that from a more practical view on the ground, what that means. But if you don't have the view of an experience of being on the ground in Denmark and listening to the Danish Prime Minister and knowing what Danes feel about their NATO membership and their contribution to security in the region and their allyship with the United States historically, if you don't know those things from that direct perspective, right, then you could at least know some of the facts about the history. Greenland and the United States have always been communicating about prosperity and defense the entire time. So you don't have to coerce anyone. This is the odd part. Where is the coercion even needed? Because before Donald Trump, they've been talking about all these things. They've been talking about business. They've been talking about security. What the hell is Donald Trump talking about? You don't have to coerce people into doing what's best for them, into wanting to make money, into wanting to prosper, into wanting to have good defense, because they already have been doing these things for the purpose of prosperity, defense. What's going on? The United States, Denmark, Greenland, all of that, we all trade together anyway. What is he talking about? If he's not talking about invasion, then what are you talking about? And you see the conflict? He's already going into negotiations about Ukraine. The United States is a NATO ally right now. It makes no sense what he's saying. You obviously can't do it. So somewhere you have to either think that Trump is out of his mind when he's talking, either highly ignorant when he's talking, or is purposely trying to confuse his allies and purposely trying to confuse the American people by sending out messages that he is not, has any intention of doing, and American people have to understand this. What level of responsibility do you expect from the leader regarding what they say? Do you want a leader that says things that aren't true? Do you want a leader that says things that are not necessary? Do you want a leader that scares people? Is that what you want? Purposely scares people? Do you want a leader that just comes out one day and says, hey, well, if Black people have to die in America for things to work, well, then, hey, that's what we'll have to do. And then someone come along later and say, hey, it was freedom of speech. It's just an opinion. He didn't mean it that way. Is that what you want? Women, do you want a president that just comes out one day and say, well, hey, if women just have to die giving birth because they don't have access to abortion because the fetus was, dead and we wouldn't take it out of the body, well, then, hey, that's just what's got to happen. Is that what you want a leader to do? That's Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump diplomacy right now. And it has been. Again, let me roll back and digress. I don't have so much time, but let me see here. And the time is about to go out. But let me digress. There's so many things that Donald Trump has gone back on in terms of keeping his word, right? There's loads of things. The man flip-flops the entire time. And it's not a strategy to win. It's not a strategy to help the United States. It's a strategy to not be held accountable for anything. That's all this is. It's a strategy for undermining the justice system, undermining security, undermining so much. Now, I want y'all to go here and review some of my shorts before I go to this next one. Let me see here. Let me just open up the chat. Throw this in the chat. Oh, did I not connect to chat before? Okay, sorry about that. Here we go. Here's the link. Donnie, what's up, bro? Sorry about that. I'm just turning the chat on. I didn't realize you was here, man. Sorry about that. Yeah, man. Yeah, but here's the info, Donnie. You know it. You know it because we talking about this stuff every day. But just for people that are new to the page to come through, check out some of the shorts, because these shorts are highly informative. Now, let me see here. Here's another one. The Supreme Court right now has no accountability. There's no enforcement. The Supreme Court can accept money and bribes currently, and there is nothing Congress has done about it. Nothing the Senate has done about it, and the American people need to know: do you want judges that can be bribed or not? Do you want punishment for judges that can be bribed or not? Is bribery of the Supreme Court okay with you or not? You have to decide that, because if you do not decide that, a lot more judges are going to be bribed.
To assure people that I am committed to making certain that we as a court adhere to the highest standards of conduct. We are continuing to look at things we can do to give practical effect to that commitment.
Code of ethics that the Supreme Court drafted up for itself, but several of the justices weren't too keen on having their ethics supervised in any sort of meaningful or effective way. A new leak shows which justices in particular fought to keep the Code of Ethics more what you'd call guidelines. But what was not included in those 14 pages were any rules for enforcement, mechanisms for oversight, or penalties for faltering.
So the Supreme Court, they don't want to be evaluated. They don't want penalties imposed for accepting bribes. They don't want that. And right now there's none. You see, they want to set standards for themselves without penalties when you violate the standards of ethics. We're talking about ethics, and they're meaning bribes. They don't want punishment, official punishments in writing. They don't want any type of law regarding them accepting bribes. And the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. And as long as things stand that way, no other law really matters, because the law will be biased. You see? And who is it going to be biased to? The people that have the money to bribe the Supreme Court. Is that okay for the American people or not? Is it that way in other Western countries or not? No, it's not. Not really. Although, corruption is a problem, but we're talking about, is it okay for the highest court of the land, for judges that sit on the highest court of the land, to receive gifts, not report them, and have no penalty? Is it even acceptable that they receive gifts at all in any form or fashion? Is it or not? What do the United States people, as far as a culture, as far as an ethnicity, as far as a people, what are the standards they want? And if you want to, it doesn't seem to be too clear right now, because there's no penalties. When you have standards, you have penalties if you violate the standards. Right now, there's no penalties. So the Supreme Court justices can pretty much do whatever they want with corruption is concerned. American people should want something to be done about that, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat. And even regardless if you're a white supremacist, because let's be honest, can't somebody bribe judges to rule against white supremacists? Isn't that possible? If you accept bribes, can't those bribes and those gifts be used against you later? Who can they be used against? How can they be used against you? Can you be blackmailed yourself? These are questions people need to ask themselves, All right, y'all, I'm out. I'm going to be back later with this. There's going to be obviously more information coming about the report because people need time to analyze it, right? We're waiting to find out if the number 2 report is going to be released. Obviously, that has national security implications. But guess what? It's 5 days left until Trump's inauguration. Anything can happen. And in due time, in the meantime, the United States government right now under Biden has a responsibility to protect its allies. So anything that's in those reports probably already went out if it has any effect on any ally. So allies already know some of the dirt. This is what you have to think. So if allies know some of the dirt because of U.S. foreign policy, don't the American people want to know it? Don't you think you should have a right? Now, the last thing I want to review is Biden. He removed Cuba from the terrorist list. So that has big implications. So let's just review.
For us in Washington, D.C. So just explain to us why Biden is removing Cuba from this list of state sponsors of terrorism now.
Well, this is something that's been under examination since essentially the Biden administration took over in the White House. Donald Trump changed the designation as he was going out the door, in fact, on the 12th of January 2021. And the Biden administration criticized them for it, saying that essentially they were tying their hands for a while. Now, they said they would undergo a review. They've done that. In 2022, Antony Blinken said that was still underway. And here we are, almost 3 years later, and they said that's now done and they're removing the designation. So what does it mean? It means that Cuba is removed from the list that also includes North Korea, Syria, and Iran. It means that humanitarian organizations...
So just to make it clear in case you didn't understand that, North Korea, Syria, and Iran are still on the terrorist list. It's Cuba that has been removed. And the Biden administration has been discussing it since he got in office. So this is one of the things that he decided to do before he came out of office. Now, let's see here.
New at
And
5.
keep in mind, Biden is going to be doing, he has the right, the authority as the president of the United States for the next 5 days until Trump is officially inaugurated. That means the inauguration is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA. That means 11:59, Biden is still the president, and he can make any order that he wishes at that time. Why? Don't go back and start arguing about, but the presidents before, they normally didn't do that. They normally stopped the day before or the week before. There's no precedent right now, according to United States law. There's no precedent. The Republican Party is not operating on precedent. They're doing whatever they want to do, and they don't care what the last person did. And Biden knows that. So expect more things.
President Biden using his final days in office to lift Cuba's terrorism designation. It's an effort to free political prisoners on the island. It would reverse the decision made during incoming President Trump's first term. CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister is live in Little Havana with what it means and how Cuban Americans are reacting tonight. Anna?
Well, Lauren, the Cuban Americans that I've spoken to just over the last hour, they tell me they are not happy with this decision. They tell me that they're looking forward to next week when they say President Donald Trump, they believe, will reverse this decision. Now, according to CBS.
Okay, Cuban Americans aren't happy with that decision. Are Cubans in Cuba happy with that decision?
News, Lauren, like you mentioned, this is all part.
Did Cuban Americans vote for Biden? Yeah, did they? I'm not sure, but it seems like the Hispanic population in the United States, they had one of the largest percentage of minorities that supported Trump.
Part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. The Catholic Church facilitated this agreement to take place. Part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. The Catholic Church.
Okay, political prisoners. Now, so Cuba has political prisoners that are American citizens. The U.S. has political prisoners, obviously, or some sort of thing like this. Now, it's an exchange. The political prisoners in Cuba, it's an exchange. It's part of it. It's not only thing, but also for the release of some of the trade sanctions.
Church facilitated this agreement. You mentioned this is all part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. The Catholic.
Okay, so it's not trade necessarily. It's just less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. My opinion about that is the history of America has migrants from Europe. You could call them migrants, but migrants from people of African descent that were taken through slavery or other means and brought to the United States, brought to America, excuse me. That's South, North, Central America. And you also have its indigenous population, Native Americans, natives, Aboriginal Americans, these type of people. You have that in North, South, Central America. These are the main, and then you have, these are the main stock, ethnic stock of North, South, and Central America. You look at the culture. Our cultures are relatively the same. Similar religion for the most part, same history for the most part. Languages, we have French, Spanish, and English. Those are the languages, right? Outside of the indigenous languages. And so to me, it seems like culturally, food, music, all these things, we have more in common with each other than we have with, you know, a lot of people in the world that we're allies with. To me, it seems like then you have resources, form of government. To me, it seems like you have the, you know, we have more in common and should be looking to help each other, enhance our prosperity than fighting with each other. So I think this is a great move. Cuba has never been an enemy of the United States outside of this thing with the Cold War. And look, even right now, the Cold War can happen and create tensions. But the thing about it is that the progressive way to go? Does everyone, all these smaller countries, do they all need to find themselves in the middle of another Cold War between the United States, Russia, and China? Look at what's going on the earth. Where all the killing is going on is where the zones where the United States, Russia, and China are selling weapons to different fractions of people, even if those people have more in common with each other than anyone else. So they're benefiting. We are benefiting from selling weapons. China, Russia, and the United States and others benefit from people that have more in common with each other fighting against each other. That's the vacuum. It can't work anywhere else. But we can't tell other people what to do. If they want to fight each other, hey, if that's what they think is smart, then hey. You see, this is where it's come to. Now, to me, it seems like working with Americans, other Americans, South Americans, Central Americans, working with Canadians, North Americans might be the logical, safe, and easiest way to go. Most profitable way to go, most secure way to go. But let's see if Trump thinks that. I doubt it.
The church facilitated this agreement to take place before Biden left left office. Senior government officials, they say there's no evidence based on recent assessments to support Cuba being on the sponsor of terrorism list, but the decision will likely be reversed when President-elect Trump takes office. Marco Rubio, who's nominated to be the Secretary of State, is Cuban, and his family fled the country in the 1950s. He and other Republicans have been outspoken about their concerns with Cuba and its dictatorship, and we heard from locals about Biden's anticipated move.
Now, this has been going on for a minute. Barack Obama lifted the sanctions. Trump came in and put them back on. These kind of things have been going on for a minute. What we have is a Republican Party. It doesn't matter what party they are. You can call them anything, but it just so happens to be the Republican Party that is opposed to people with the most closest culture to them, mending, bringing, having more ties, healing wounds. The Republican Party seems to be adamantly against Americans from South America, Canada, North America, reaching back into their actual roots and common history and finding common ground, working together because of the prosperity, natural resources, more in common with our religion and culture, music, food, history. Republicans are dividers. They're the ones that do not want Americans from South America and North America working together based on what we have in common more than we have with other people on earth. Now, to me, it seems like security and prosperity can be extremely enhanced through cooperation with people most like us. Let's see what the Republican Party thinks. Let's see what the Republican Party does, right? It's very obvious that Cubans have never, outside of the Cold War, where, again, half of the earth was split up into people getting weapons by Russia, people getting weapons from the West, right? This time around, it could be another Cold War now, and you see it, people getting weapons from China. Then, China supporting one ethnic group, Russia supporting the other ethnic group, the United States supporting another ethnic group, and people that have a lot in common with each other are being war-torn and fighting against each other that way. That's what the Cold War was too, except it expanded, it had a bigger proximity. Now, it seems to me if we as Americans want to make sure we don't get caught up in that problem, we might want to work together with people most like us. And Cubans are one of those people. Other American countries in South America, Central America, North America, these are the same people. Your cousin could be living in Cuba. Your cousin could be living in Brazil. Your cousin could be living in Chile. Your cousin could be living in Canada. A person directly related to your bloodline could be living anywhere in America. Why? Because of the history of America. You see? Same thing. Native American groups don't just encompass one border. They cross over borders, different Native groups. You see? Because of the history. So to me, it seems like the logical thing to do is to do things to have outreach that are based on commonality and stop being so adversarial and punitive towards people that simply just don't deserve it. Also, people that generally speaking do not hate us, are not trying to harm us, and just want to be as free as we want to be. You see, people that are not anti-American, people that are not anti their counterpart in America, people that are, we don't want Chile to be anti-Brazil. We don't want Chile to be anti anybody, United States. We don't want Cuba to be anti-Canadian. We don't want Cuba to be anti-Brazil. We don't want any of that strife. You know, there's enough. The North America, South America, Central America has enough natural resources, has enough cultural resources to become an even greater economic power if we look at commonality and if we look at our history. We have more in common. We have ties through blood, through history, historical context, more greater ties than we have almost with, you know, half of the world. That doesn't mean we need to be adversarial with half of the world. If we use this history to bring people together instead of ripping people apart, we can do better. On that note, I'm out, y'all. I appreciate everybody. Stay up on the news. Leave some comments. I know I haven't been so on time with the lives or the videos lately. You know, I've been busy. You know, it's been a rough time for work. Not rough, you know, but it's been a busy time for work for me, and also busy time for family. So I've been taking a minute to just focus a little more, not focus, but just enjoy a little more time with the family. So, you know, so I haven't really been prioritizing these lives and stuff, but I appreciate everybody, the support. You know, let's see how it goes in the future, but I'm going to be here this year, and we're going to keep talking about these issues because these issues are at the forefront of our lives and have great impact on our lives, how we think, how we make decisions, and ultimately what's going to happen. So on that note,